Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York. We will set this scene as Maebh returns to, well, the Sept proper from her visit to the gallows, as it were. By time she's back walking the familiar trails, she's managed to recover her composure fairly well. It's evident to those that know her, well, really much to anyone who looks closely, that she's had herself a bit of a cry, but she seems to be all right. And as she walks through the Sept and just among the trees that are familiar, the plants that are familiar, the people that are familiar, she kind of heartens up a bit. And, well, definitely looks like she's doing a good job of recovering from her kind of painfully enlightening visit. Whereabouts is a Lucas? Might he be walking about?
Let's see. You see Lucas as he is right behind a squadron of full force solution lackeys, currently with a rock in his hand, staring really hard at the back of one of those helmets.
No, in light of this particular situation, Maebh is going to kind of very suddenly stop dead in her tracks and shoot a shocked, like, wide-eyed stare at him. Thankfully not from in front of this little squad. But will catch herself knowing darn well that you don't look at the person who's sneaking, and very, very sharply turn her eyes straight again and walk a little less firmly, a little less dedicatedly in the same direction she was going. She was headed towards the castle, but at this point she's just kind of walking for the sake of not standing and staring and thinking very loudly, oh, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh, please don't do it.
You hear, as you continue walking, as you turn away from the scene, a bit of a loud exclamation coming from a, well, you would guess a rather muscular voice, probably through a scarf.
At which point she thinks, oh my fucking god, he did it. And again, is not going to turn and look at the situation, is not going to draw attention to herself, because that is the only thing that is held true no matter who she talks to, is sweet Jesus, don't draw attention. God damn it, Lucas. And so she is going to pray really hard that he returns to shadow mode, and is going to, at a totally not hurried clip, get the hell away from that situation.
You hear from behind you the footfalls of boots on the pavement. And it seems like that group of men is maybe not running, but definitely walking very heavily. Maybe, actually, yeah, in your direction.
And she's going to, in light of that, try the same tactic she used in her right in just being a normal fucking person. And hearing them going at a quick clip themselves will just sidle herself off to the side of the path and give them room to pass. Just kind of glancing back and schooling her expression to one of curiosity.
Fair enough. The squadron men go ahead and march pace very quickly past you, actually. And, well, feet away, at least a few paces away, Lucas goes ahead and just simply strolls, and he's still carrying that same rock he's got in his hand, still thinking really hard.
And as he strolls, he's going to get his shoulder grabbed. I have a great idea. Let's just not.
That isn't. It is definitely an idea. It's definitely a concept.
No, it's a fantastic idea.
You think?
Oh, yep.
I think
Yep.
that's what we usually go ahead and do, and well,
This isn't the place.
the rock goes ahead and gets tossed into the air and caught by Lucas's hands. Well, we don't do that a lot. It's just maybe, sometimes a do is something you
That
want to do.
is kind of what we've been told by people who are the right to tell us, oh my god, please don't do it.
No, that is true. We have been told by, people higher than us that we ought not to. And we usually, just don't. But when you got a rock, you got to explore the possibility.
What are the chances she can just be like, oh, look, he's holding a rock, and I'm taking that?
Very easily.
She's just going to be like, nope. She's not trying to be a fucking ninja about it. She's not a ninja. She's just going to reach over and be like, nope, and this is mine now.
Presumptuous to go ahead and lay claim to a rock.
Presumptuous indeed. But I mean, hey, all the cool kids are doing it, so.
Well, if all the cool kids decided to go ahead and claim giant freaking anchors and then chain those anchors to themselves and throw them off a bridge, do you think you'd do it too?
I think their cool status would drop significantly when they died.
I think the cool status would go ahead and drop significantly as quickly as the anchors went ahead and dropped them into the ocean.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about it. That would not be cool anymore. So, the temptation wouldn't be there.
It would be cool for a moment, and then it would turn tragic.
It would. Oh, I needed that. Oh, holy shit. So, let's walk over that away in a place where we can talk about things and stuff.
Okay, fair enough. We can go ahead and go over there and talk about things and stuff.
And, well, I mean, Belvedere Castle is kind of sort of safe, but let's be honest, during the day, it's a tourist trap. So she'll instead deviate off to the trail on the far side towards the, in the patch of veiled area where the cub cabins and the cairn reside. And make well and good sure that they are within those bounds. Before kind of canting her head to the side as they walk and saying, hey, so, I mean, everything's terrible, but I got something that might make you a little happy.
Really? Do you have cookies?
Nah, it's not cookies.
Do you have a path to several of the Gaian realms that are untainted by war and or corruption?
You have pretty high standards.
I know. That's why you like me.
Oh, no. No, and she kind of rubs at one of her eyes. I went to visit Travis. And he said something, I mean, really, really mature, not something I really expected him to say.
Tell me about it then.
Well, we talked about all sorts of things, but towards the end, he looked at me and he asked me if I was still in love. And I told him that I loved you as a brother and as my closest friend, but that we knew better. And he asked me again and said that he would reward me if I was honest. So I said it again. And, I mean, he kind of surprised me. He said that having seen the things that Teeth had done and realizing that physically hurting someone, I mean, we can heal that. but you don't forget the wrongs that are done to you, and the mental scars remain, and that he earnestly was sorry for the things that he put you through all that time ago. I think the whole thing kind of gave him some clarity on just how badly he was hurting you, even though he never laid a hand on you.
We have this bit of clearing to ourselves. It has a little bit of a path. This is one of the pathways that cut through the veiled section of the park. And, well, the path isn't necessarily paved, but it's certainly beaten in by feet. And you two are walking side by side for a very long time until, well, you go ahead and finish that last statement, and Lucas isn't really, well, stepping forward anymore.
She probably makes a mistaken couple steps before she realizes that there's no steps alongside her. She wasn't really looking at him, studying his face, was kind of giving him the privacy to react as he would. So when the steps just kind of stop, she herself will halt and turn about and finally kind of turn to look at him, to actually like really get a look at his expression, to try to get a grasp on how he's feeling, how he's reacting to it.
Hmm. He has a rather neutral expression on his face. Was he going to take that with him into death?
No, he wanted me to tell you.
Goes ahead and nods. If you see him again before the end, tell him to leave that business here in the Gaian realm and to go back to his homeland without holding that inside his heart. That is a guilt that he wants to leave behind, and I'm more than willing to let it stay here while he goes back home.
And she kind of smiles faintly. You know, I was kind of worried you wouldn't believe it.
Men do and say things when they are facing death and they would not otherwise do.
I think he does finally understand, if that makes any difference.
Travis Moran, I've had to go ahead and accept his nature more than once, and his nature is very much different to my own. So I understand. He charges into things, sometimes without thinking, sometimes for the best, but I have seen the worst. So, should he charge into death? Let it not be this one guilt that trips him up. Let him be able to charge into death, into peace, back into the mother's arms, without it.
I hope so. I mean, like I told him, the first thing I had to learn is what is wise is not always what is right. He may have done what he thought was right, but he didn't do what was wise. Both with you and just now.
Travis Morand makes his own decisions.
He does.
He cannot be controlled by any power other than himself. I hope more people go ahead and learn that towards the end of this tragedy.
Yeah.
There are some people that are close to him, that are also close to me, that blame themselves for his actions, and that is not right.
She kind of knits her brow.
Travis Moran, for whatever reason or intention, was the one that woke up that morning, grabbed his clave, and walked towards Teeth of Titanium.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's explained why, regardless of whether we agree with it. He's still explained why he did, what he believed.
I do not doubt that.
And I
He
don't
will
think
be.
there's anything anyone could have said or done to change what he felt was the right thing to do.
What reasons did he give to you? Because I've heard many reasons come from him towards others, or at least from others.
Well, I mean, I assume he carries his clave regardless, but he told me, well, first off, that the really immediate answer is that, and I don't know about the gift that makes one's claws into silver, but he told me that the longer it is active, the more that it fuels your rage because of the pain that's involved in doing that to yourself. So I imagine he knew when he walked up to Teeth in the first place that there was no way it would go peacefully, not when Teeth was pacing and waiting for him with his claws already silvered. And he pointed out that without a Philodox present to bless a disciplinary action of that magnitude, he didn't make it into anything formal. He literally just grabbed Travis in the midst of refusing to hear him out, I guess, in the midst of talking. Just grabbed him and took out his eye with one of those silver claws. No challenge, no Philodox, so I guess he felt he was within his rights to retaliate. He said that he could have used his claws, yes, but using his claws would have just resulted in his death. He figured he had one shot, I guess. As
To some,
for the other stuff, he said that one of the things he'd learned when he had been the warder himself is that the worm foe is one of the very few who has the right to outright disobey the warder. He says that at one point, I guess it was Alan, the worm foe, disobeyed his orders and was never taken to task for it because it is the worm foe's right. So the fact that he was being punished for taking an action that in the end did disobey an order from the warder was not right as well.
two assumptions that he makes here. One assumption is the Titanium Raya wanted to aggressively end Travis's life from the very get-go with the silver claws. Second, which the assumption that his death would go ahead and be resulted from using a less lethal force. Again, his decisions to make.
I don't know that he thought that Teeth would necessarily kill him without provocation, but I think that he knew that once he struck, that was he had one chance or he wasn't going to win. That and if the Raya was so full of rage that it was a good chance that it wouldn't go well.
Many things were surrounding that event, that being the disciplinary actions of his own pack and Rin, who he dearly respects, and who she dearly respects him. He could have brought that grievance up, and that could have been a much more formal thing. Things fell apart very, very quickly because of the decisions that were made. I, I, I give it to him, both by Travis and by Teeth. The decisions that they made ultimately led to Teeth's death and his imprisonment, but it was all their decisions.
And she kind of lifts her hands, in a don't shoot the messenger kind of way and says, "No, I agree with you." But in that moment, I guess he decided that that was all he could do. He should have probably gone, I don't know, even to the beta. But instead, they met, both expecting it not to go well. Travis certainly expecting to have to defend himself once he saw the state that the Raya was in, and it went as bad as it could go.
It all went sideways very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And they can go ahead and show you the breadcrumbs, go ahead and show you the ripples that led up to that event. I think you already know the story.
I know enough of it. I don't agree with either of their actions, but that doesn't change what happened. I believe that Teeth was doing what he thought he had to do in order to keep the cairn safe. It was extreme, but I'm sure that he believed that he was taking the extremes necessary to make his points so that people would obey and do what he thought would keep us safe. And Travis, I'm sure, felt that the warder had far overstepped his bounds, was a menace to the Sept itself, and thought that he was saving us from suffering at the hands of Teeth. So
You and I both know where Teeth actions go ahead and far succeed his station, that being those actions directly to the Cubs, who are still learners.
yeah,
This wasn't one of those times.
it wasn't. And honestly, I mean, I'm no Philodox, and I don't know how far their power extends. I don't know. I mean, at any given point, I would rather involve a Philodox than not and make the mistake of not doing it, but I don't know where that line is.
Silver. It's very damaging, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, if it is quick, if there is a talented healer, anything can be reversed. Silver, it takes a bit of doing, but it can be done if you're quick. Again, if you're very quick and very proficient.
I know.
You don't like me right now, do you?
Hmm?
You don't like me right now, do you?
Why wouldn't I?
Because I'm looking at all this, I'm poking holes in something.
Like I said, I feel like I understand what both of them thought they were going to accomplish. I think that neither of them took the proper path. You can poke holes all day. It's just, regardless of what the right thing to do, the wise thing to do may have been, each of them did instead what they thought was right. And now one is dead and one is probably awaiting death.
One has been put into the legal system. There are appeals that could be made.
He seems to expect the hunt to be called on him.
If the hunt is indeed called on him, then he will regain what he has lost in death.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of face, a little bit of reputation. His career will be ended, yes, but those last few actions will be forgiven.
I think that regardless of whether someone pushes it through until he is able to survive the whole thing or the hunt is called, I imagine that at this point it's time for Travis to move beyond this Sept, if not going back to Gaia.
That might be best for him. There's blood here. There's blood here. I was going to say there's history here, but the history is, well, in the history there's blood as well.
Yeah.
Again, should he leave us, he will go back to his homeland. Give powerful ancestor spirit. He will probably urge people to action. Hopefully people have more wisdom than to follow blindly.
I think the best thing to be said is that he was very Fianna. He acted based on his passions.
He goes ahead and nods. Passionate man that drives Moran.
Yep.
Wise or effective? Questionable. We'll see how the new regime goes ahead and covers things. We'll see how his legend goes ahead and persists after him.
Well, I mean, I know you're not fond of him, but I don't plan to let his memory die, even if it's through Adam. He did some stupid shit.
Lots of stupid shit. An incredible amount of stupid shit.
Yeah, but he did a lot of good too. Maybe not to you personally, but
He was still your elder.
yeah.
You still admired him for the way he rose in rank. For his career.
I mean, Chase has told me time and time again that regardless of how I may have felt, Travis was still a fine example of a Fianna.
That's not the question that I asked.
I wasn't here for all the grand things that Travis did, but I can say that at least no matter how passionate I was when I came to him especially in regards to you. No matter how I acted, he still, at least in his mind, did his best to treat me like family and to keep an eye on me. Maybe too much of an eye sometimes, but even if he did it wrong, he tried to do right by me.
Admire his intentions, but you may always, always, always question the effectiveness.
And she kind of shrugs. It's that whole kind of uncomfortable look away shrug. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell you've hit the nail on the head, but she's still uncomfortable speaking ill in light of current events.
Can't speak ill of the Ed or the soon-to-be dead, I'm gonna guess.
It,
That was OC.
yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she'll kind of be evasive about it, but she's not gonna say he's wrong. I guess, I mean, there's something to be said for having your heart in the right place. I mean, the road to hell and all, but in the end, all he's asked me to do is take care of the kin and take care of the cubs.
He nods, as an elder ought to.
He only asked me to do 2 other things.
I'm guessing you already done the one.
Well, there was that. He asked me if I'd learned an instrument yet, and I told him no. He said that it's a large part of being Fianna, and that I should learn to perform, even if it's only to sing. And that's not asking so much. And I mean, I already know it, but he told me that I have a gentle heart. And he said that the only thing he'd ask is that I don't lose that. I don't have any intention of losing it. But it was kind of reassuring to hear someone speak well of it instead of speak poorly of it.
That stops him for a second. Has somebody spoken poorly about that heart? One of the elders?
The day that someone congratulates me for tending to the wounded in battle instead of leaping right into the thick of it is the day I may well have a heart attack before I reach 20.
Believe me, when you reach 20, it's all downhill from there.
Most people don't seem to be very fond of my, and she'll kind of air quotes, gentle heart. I'm pretty sure they just think I'm weak. It's nice to have someone say it as if they admire it instead of as if it's something I just need to get out of, like a phase.
Goes ahead and shakes his head. Sometimes emergency care on the battlefield is very, very important. Hell, I remember down in the tunnels, Miss Cinnamon Harris would have died if I had not taken a second to make sure that she wounds were healed.
Oh, let's just not talk about Senna right now.
Why are we not talking about Senna?
Because I don't want to talk about Senna.
Why are we not talking about Senna?
Because Senna thinks she's clever and she's being a child, and I'm so done. I get the funny feeling that she thinks she's gonna somehow make her point over by doing more silly things, even though she has actually told me her point.
Blink. I don't know what you're talking about.
She met me this morning before I went to go and do rounds with Katori, which was very, very early. I mean, in the end, I was right, and it was her. But, yeah, I don't... Like, do you do Pranks 101 or something? Because, yeah.
Mentorship is not really a thing amongst the Ragabashes. I mean, the most I got was Garrett going ahead and giving me like a random numbered list of things I ought to and not to do.
Well, I didn't agree with her, but I told her I understood. And I told her that the prank was poorly done. Made me look bad to the worm foe. Never mind that it didn't convey any of what she was trying to say.
What was she trying to say?
Well, first off, she was so sure that it was so obvious exactly what they were and why they were there and who had done it, which was stupid. And the point wasn't that I left her abandoned to the spider in a cocoon. She thinks that my strategy on the battlefield is bad. I pointed out that perhaps she was not the best person to be making such remarks, because I was very, very uncaffeinated and very, very annoyed by that point.
Looking back on the prank, identifying who did it, not too much of a big jump. Plenty of physical evidence was left there for you to go ahead and pick up and investigate and then pin her down.
Plenty of evidence. It smelled like dirt.
Yes. And you have also other characteristics. You have a hair sample, which is
Yes, but
great.
even you weren't willing to jump to that conclusion.
I could have easily taken that hair sample, taken it to her, matched, and called her the culprit.
I'm
Did you
going
do
to go
that?
back to the part where if someone can't make the point with the example, like if you were just going to do something to get a laugh at my expense, that would be one thing. Put a pail of water over the door, whatever. But she tried to convey a message and didn't even remotely convey her message.
Okay. I'm just disapproving that the second point you had, that it was impossible to go ahead and find out that it was her.
It wasn't impossible. She just thought that it was blatantly obvious, which it wasn't.
Lucas goes ahead and waves his hand in the air. It depends on the skill set of the investigator. Okay, I'll give you that one.
I imagine I did a pretty good job by finding a few stray hairs and following her footprints from the Umbra to the Tellurian, and even identifying fairly closely what kind of shoes she was wearing. But that doesn't mean that I know it's her. I don't pay attention to her shoes. That's stupid. And I'm not going to jump to a conclusion.
Maebh, stop. You comparing the physical evidence, the shoes, the hairs, the smell, to anybody in the Sept is not you jumping to a conclusion. It's just you confirming or disconfirming several evidences. That's all that is. In any case, going beyond that, I admit, takes a skill case, a certain amount of investigative skill. I'll give you that one. What I will also give you is the fact that I saw the same thing that you did. The woven up dolls, the very threatening language. I didn't get pack tactics from that one.
Yeah.
Deeper into that idea, what about the pack tactics? I can only assume that it was like from that same instance with the Weaver spiders coming into the Sept.
And she nods. She pointed out that I had a strong position in the fight, which I did. I mean, it wasn't keeping it from doing what it was doing, but at least I was helping to hurt it and holding it so that she could hurt it slightly easier.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, she's arguing that we all should have converged on one of them and just ignored the other one? Or that I should have just left Nicholas abandoned and asked Katori to help him when he came on the whole thing. Which, by the same token, as I split away to aid Nicholas, she could have asked Katori to aid her, and has far more right to ask anything of him than I do.
Okay. Taking away Katori and myself from the equation. Because most of these decisions are made with the resources that are available. How did you two and the rest approach the Weaver Spiders?
We had split to where it was 2 fighting each one, because there were 2 of them and 4 of us. And, well, when Adam did what he did, he ended up abandoning... Well, I should say, I had gotten a hold of it with my teeth and was kind of holding it. I couldn't get it out of the tree, but at least I had a hold of it and was able to kind of gnaw on it from there. But when Adam abandoned Nicholas while he was incapacitated to come and fight with us, I couldn't help but think that I couldn't abandon Nicholas, who was unable to defend himself, especially after Cinna had been kidnapped by one of them, to a Weaver spirit. So I let go. And I knew that I was letting go of an advantage, but I let go, and I turned to try to break Nicholas out, because I could have fought the spider myself, yes, but I already had seen that I wasn't able to do very much damage to them, and Nicholas was capable of doing far more, and I thought that I would be more effective if I was able to damage the webs that were binding him so that he could start moving again.
Lucas goes ahead and waves his hands. You know that on the battlefield, sometimes strength comes from proper position. Hell, I was able to snap that fucker in 2. But he goes ahead and digresses. Okay, so the decision was made before the fight started, or at least it was organized in that 2 people per spider, right?
It wasn't necessarily organized, it's just what we did.
Fell into what was natural, what a pack fell into, what the pack fell into, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You had put yourself in an advantageous position by grappling your own spider, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is good. However, on the other side, Nicholas and Adam were fighting, and Adam left. Adam was taken over by somebody else and simply left Nicholas. So
Yep.
from there, everything goes ahead and spills out. Before that moment, everything was, I'm guessing, going at a sort of good pace, a good clip, something that was controllable at least, right?
I won't say it was going well. There was a lot of webbing being cast out, and it was making it harder and harder to fight the longer we went on. And even from the get-go, it was very, very hard to make our damage stick, to make the bites actually hurt them.
Okay, so in the battle between these 2 power... Ooh, what was that?
That was my phone.
Okay, continuing
Go
on.
ahead.
In this battle with the spiders, it was a battle of attrition that the spiders seemed to be winning, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody think at any moment that if y'all had continued that fighting style with the 2 on one and the 2 on the other, could you eventually won out?
Maybe it wasn't looking favorable, but with Katori showing up, I was heartened enough to continue.
Again, excluding Katori and myself. Do you honestly think you could have won?
I'm honestly not sure. Part of the reason we were able to continue was in the confidence that others would show up. That and they were right on the edge of the Sept. It's not like we could just leave them to go in.
All right. So it seems as which you all were put into a bad situation. You all decided a course of action that didn't seem the best, that only seemed to go ahead and get worse. And midway through the fight, something drastic went ahead and changed everything. That being Adam changing his own position unwarranted, that led to an even worse situation, some would say.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
However, looking at it again, an optimal strategy perhaps would have been to focus on the one spider before going to the next. That would have been the optimal strategy. But in the heat of the moment, that was not the strategy chosen. And I think everybody involved, maybe they will learn a thing or two.
That's kind of my point, is that the whole thing sort of went to shit. And it wasn't the actions of me in particular. I don't even know if I can blame Adam, really. He didn't have any control over what was happening. But all the same, it was kind of a shit show. I did what I thought was right to do. And in the same situation, I would probably do the same thing again.
Okay. So in that moment, in that very, very moment where Adam chose to switch his target, do you think with that focus fire, with 3-on-1, you've been able to overcome it and then come over to the other one, perhaps in time to grab Nicholas out from its clutches?
That's the thing. If I thought that that was a viable option, that's what I would have done. I didn't want to turn around to him being eaten. I didn't want to turn around to find him and the spider gone.
He nods.
So I did what I felt was right, which is have them continue to fight 2-on-1 and to ensure that Nicholas didn't die or get taken.
Okay, what this tells me is there wasn't a lot of direction on the battlefield, which, fair enough, sometimes you don't really need a lot of directions. But unless somebody was like standing up and giving orders, there's not a lot that you can do.
There wasn't.
With anybody. Or you. With Cinna.
I don't think so. I can't remember it clearly, but I may, as I broke away to retrieve Nicholas, I think that I asked Adam? Thomas? Whatever? Asked him to remain and fight with Cinna. And I used every ounce of influence I thought I could push into it to tell him to stay there as I went to retrieve Nicholas.
All
I
right, so
didn't
what you
want him
tell...
breaking away again and coming over to aid me or something and leaving Cinna by herself.
His head nods. So what you're telling me is that this was a bit of a skirmish, bit of an unorganized skirmish between us and those spiders, and we got hurt for it.
I'm going to say that in Chino's words, it was pretty much a clusterfuck.
His head nods. Was Cinna able to relate that to you?
Cinna... One second. Cinna conveyed that She thinks that I personally did the worst thing ever, and that she thinks I should learn a lesson from it based on some obscure dolls.
Did she actually say those words?
Maybe not word for word, but she made it very clear that I was the one that she was angry at, and that it was my actions that she thought would have killed us.
Goes ahead and waves his hand in the air. Maybe? I don't know.
Maybe, but by time I did that, Katori was there, because part of her argument on the whole is that if I was doing exactly what I should have done by her terms, I would have asked Katori to go and aid Nicholas instead of moving.
Again, he goes ahead and waves his hand in the air. If we were doing everything by the fucking book, one of you would have dropped the spider to the fucking ground. Another one would have been ripping apart its armor. Another one would have been biting into the insides and taking whatever the hell is in a weaver spider. I assume circuits and servos.
I tried that. I did not get it on the ground. I got it like halfway out of the tree, but that's about all I got.
Again, I am hearing an organized skirmish.
Yep.
Gotta praise the Arun when he is around.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to get him free again.
Not just for his strength, but for his command. On the battlefield, the Arun usually is the one giving commands because he's usually been on the battlefield more than once, twice, 3 times. It's their auspice duty.
Ironically, in this case, the ranking person was Sinner herself, who never made any call to anyone, so I really don't see why she's giving me a mountain of shit.
Perhaps, well, you know that thing you usually do when you wish for people to be more clever than they actually are?
You mean that thing I'm doing right now?
What, with me?
No.
Who do you think is more clever than they actually are?
I'm wishing Senna was more clever than she actually is.
Well, guess what? She's also wishing that you are more clever than you really are.
I am not an Arun.
No, but she goes ahead and remembers that battle and wishes things had gone better because somebody should have been able to step up. If it not for her, then maybe somebody else. Maybe she is just simply disappointed that nobody stood up and said, we are doing this now, when it ought to be her doing it.
Yep.
In the end, unorganized skirmish, no plain leadership, nothing to be blamed.
So, answer me a question, Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
I get the feeling that she's not going to let this drop and is going to keep pulling shit. Like, what she thinks are very clever pranks. A ragabash pulling pranks to make a point is one thing. However, if someone is just being petty, which she confessed to, by the way, then what is the proper actions to take to call someone out on trying to hide behind auspice duties when they're just causing conflict?
First point of order, I don't think she'll be doing this again.
If she doesn't, then, I mean, I'll let the whole thing drop. But I get the feeling the other shoe's going to drop any minute now.
Okay. I still believe that she will not do anything more. I think that she has gone ahead and made whatever point that she was making rather plain to you in the last conversation that you had. However, in the case where I'm not going to say hiding behind auspice duties, but if you have a disagreement with another Garou, one, you go to them. If that conversation doesn't fall through or if a compromise can't be made, it's possible to go to the alpha. It might be possible to go to the alpha first. That's always an option available. But Still, if a compromise cannot be made from either talking to the Garou himself, the alpha of his pack, or the philodox of the pack, which I don't believe the hunters actually do have philodox. If you continue to have a disagreement with Miss Cinnamon Harris, go to Rin Brennan and explain the situation. If she isn't able to settle it, then going to the Master of Challenges is your final resort. Hell, when Olaf gets back, you can probably appeal to him. Going to the philodox of either your pack or the pack of the Garou you're currently having conflict with is always an option.
All right. Like I said, I'm annoyed, but I'll get over it.
I know you do.
But if she keeps this up, and I mean, we didn't exactly part on good terms, I wouldn't put it past her.
I'd ask that you think better of your sister just for a hot second.
I've watched her literally throw herself at Travis. I wouldn't say that cool-headed or calculated are very applicable terms in this case.
Again, he goes ahead and waves his hand in the air.
I will hope for the best, but I am preparing for the worst.
I guess that is all that I can really ask of you, to go ahead and hope for the best of your sister. Possibly prepare for the worst.
Yep. So now I know if it does continue, and I will hope that once she's cooled down, she'll realize that she said what she needed to say, and even if we didn't agree, she got her point across.
You guys ahead and nods? Very well. Going back to an earlier point, did you find your conversation with Travis edifying?
I didn't want to miss what would have been a last chance to talk to him, and I'm glad I did it.
Good.
And now I'm going to go to the castle, and I'm going to spend time with the kin, except Gary, because apparently Gary's a creep. And going to try to see the good in this.
What is your biggest concern coming out of all this?
What, with Travis?
With how the Sept is currently, with the new regime, with Travis's, well, he goes ahead and lets that situation trail off. With the pack, anything.
My biggest worry is the same as it was before everything went sideways. The enemy's at the gates.
The enemy will always be at the gates.
Yeah, but they're not usually like walking on our front lawn.
No, they've done that before.
Well, it's the first time I've seen it.
Maebh. He goes ahead and like settles himself, and hell, he'll find a small patch of earth and rock. Actually, it's been beaten down off the path, and sit down. Maebh. You live long enough. In this life, you find what is truly a distance, what is truly a threatening distance. Them FFS, those men with all that equipment walking around that respond and report to a higher authority, which respond and report to, well, I can only imagine what kind of worm-tainted influence people. Yeah, that is disturbing, but that isn't any different from any other day, to be quite honest. It's just that this time they've got, I don't know, really fancy body armor.
It's more that this time, like, there were the police, and that was annoying, but they were just people trying to do their job. This time, it's people that we know are controlled by our enemy and usually supplemented by Fomori and other worm-tainted people. All it takes is for them one day to decide that it's time to make that push and bring those utilities to bear and make one big push. They're already right here. They already have, what, suppressing fire?
This is true. However, this is not the battlefield. This is not where they want to engage either, because it's in front of everybody. Where they want to go ahead and engage are places where our influence is a little bit less well noticed. Those back alleys, those sewers, those places out of the public eye. And that is where we ought to go ahead and fight them. That is where we will continue to draw them out into that battlefield. That is where we will win. And that is where their numbers will dwindle. They will dwindle outside the public view. And when they dwindle outside the public view, they will dwindle within the public view as they continue to draw forces away. And then eventually, hell, after we're done with these 3 weapon caches, we will probably see FFS officers walking around in their fucking skivvies. And that would be really, really fucking hilarious to go ahead and see one of these muffle buff folks not wearing a single damn thing with clothing except for their briefs.
Can I just make the blanket statement that everything sucks right now?
Everything does suck. Everything will continue to suck. Lucas goes ahead and extends his arms out.
Does it ever stop being terrible? I feel like it wasn't this terrible before.
That's because you didn't. That's because you couldn't see how terrible it was.
You're bad at being reassuring. You're bad at it.
I'm also
This is
wonderful about
not
being
even reassuring.
I am totally reassuring.
is
I am a totally
opposite of
empathetic and comforting
This is
personality. I am
disheartening and
I am
crippling.
totally freaking encouraging. I am powering
No,
you,
this is the
edifying you
worst
with
thing
this
that ever
particular
happened to
conversation.